Hello and welcome to my YouTube channel where I share my passion and lessons learned of aviation and business. My name is Dr. Anna Serpenenko, also known as Anna Skydancer, and my background is a PhD in financial mathematics. I'm also an airshow performer and an aviation business owner. Today I will share with you why I love real estate as an investment and why I quit investing in real estate. First of all, I have to say that I love real estate. Even as a kid, I was developing building projects of commercial or residential buildings for the purpose of developing, for the purpose of investing. I had business plans going with it, and my brain was spinning in that direction for a very, very long time. And then what kicked it off for me as an investment is Robert Kiyosaki's book. When I read it, it really inspired me about getting the investment, setting up the system. And my objective was to have a minimum of $10,000 per month of a passive income from real estate investment as rental income from my properties. So I have been working on it for a number of years, and I have done some real estate investment. Fast forward to today, I do not currently do real estate investment, and I'll walk you through the reasons why I did it and why and what changed. So let's start with the good part and why it does work. So yes, it can be a viable investment. It very much depends on the place and the time and all the circumstances, and I will talk you through how it can work and how it did work for me for many years. So first of all, my first residential real estate investment was made about 20 years ago in Germany. Back then I bought a few studios that were rented out to students, bachelor suites, and I paid about 25,000 euros each. They were each rented for about 250 euros a month, and they had the strata fees or property fees associated at about 80 euros a month. So all in all, I had remaining $170 a month, which added up to 2,040 euros per year on the investment of 25,000. So it yielded a return on investment of about 8.16%, which is not bad because it's typically more than you get in a savings account. Now, one step up, you actually do use other people's money most of the time when you invest in real estate. So no, I did not have $25,000. In fact, when I made those first investments, I was a student in Germany. So it was a miracle to me altogether that I was able to qualify for a mortgage being there on a study permit, but I did. Because I was able to present to the bank my business plan and how I could make sure that the bank would be paid for those mortgage for lending me that money, and that they did not have the risk or very minimal risk with lending me that money. So once I have demonstrated that, I was allowed to get that mortgage. So I ended up only investing 2,500 euros per property, and the remaining 22,500 was a mortgage. So I was paying approximately 5% interest on that mortgage at that time. So it was on 22,500, about 1,125 euros per year, or 93 euros and 75 cents per month, which left me with 76 euros and 25 cents per month, or 915 euros per month of investment. So the rent minus the property expenses minus the mortgage, I was making 915 euros per month per property on 2,500 euros investment. So and if you do the math, that is 36.6% return on investment. Now, this is like way above and beyond you can get on any savings accounts or GIC accounts. If I was reinvesting all this money back into the property. So every 3 years I would have enough money put aside to buy another property under those conditions and so on. So I could have continued growing, and I did it for some time. So the math worked great, and it was a great investment because the numbers actually did work pretty well. As an added bonus, the properties do tend to appreciate over time. So I did this investment for, I don't know, maybe about 10 years or so. And when I sold those properties, after having bought them for $25,000 each, 25,000 euros each, I sold them each for about 35,000 euros. So that gave me an additional 10,000 of return on investment on my original investment. So over 10 years, it was at about extra 1,000 euros per year, just to simplify the math, which turns into additional 40% on the original return on the original investment of 2,500 into each. So I ended up having 76.6% return on investment, which is like really unheard of. You rarely have that consistent return even on the stock market or otherwise in real estate. So that was a combination of rental income, the leverage of using the bank's money for the mortgage, and the appreciation over time. And at that time it was going great, and it worked. And if it was still the same numbers, it would, and I was in the same location, it would have worked probably even today. Now, let's talk about the things that are not as obvious in investing in real estate. Although the numbers that I just presented were absolutely real, what was not included in it are a few considerations. So one and the main factor in real estate investment is the location. So as I mentioned, that the first real estate investment that I had was in Germany, and the ratio between the rent that was an average rent in the area per month versus the purchase price of the real estate per month was such that the numbers could be made work. So at the same time as I was moving from Germany to Canada, I actually wanted to continue investing in real estate. And I started looking at real estate prices, and I was like, the numbers don't actually work. So for an average apartment, I would have paid here in Vancouver, and let's make a big disclaimer, I was moving from Germany with average real estate prices to Vancouver. That is one of the most expensive cities real estate wise in North America. So I could buy an apartment for about $250,000, which is almost 10 times of the price of a studio in Germany, while the rent was probably in the $750 range, meaning about 3 times of the German numbers. So right away there, the ratio between the rent and the purchase price of an apartment, or really any real estate property here, was right away such that it's like, I don't think I can make those numbers work here. So if I was to rent a $250,000 apartment for $750 a month, and my strata fees, my monthly expenses would be in the $150 range, I would end up with $600 per month in my pocket, or $7,200 per year, and it turns into 2.88% of return on investment. And seriously, you can probably get something like that from a savings account without too much hassle. Now, if I wanted to borrow the difference between what I had for down payment, because no, I didn't have $250,000 to invest in real estate. If I wanted to borrow money, if I had 10% of down payment, now the down payment becomes pretty big, because 10% of $250,000 is 25,000. In Germany, my down payment was only 2,500. So now I'm putting much more money in, and I'm borrowing $225,000. Using the absolutely same interest rates, because they do tend to be comparable between different countries. Otherwise, people would be borrowing in a different country. So at the same 5% of interest rate, I would be paying to the bank $11,250 per year, or $938 per month. So basically, I would be paying every month out of my pocket for a tenant to live in my apartment. So it would end up costing me more to pay the bank and to pay for my strata fees per month than I would be able to get from a tenant. And I cannot obviously increase the rent beyond the amounts that people are paying as a rent in the area, because people will just go somewhere else. So in this case, if in Germany, having a mortgage allowed me to increase my return on investment from 8% to in the 36% range. In Canada, in Vancouver, a mortgage would put me from 2% return on investment way into the negative. Another consideration is the time frame of the mortgage. In Europe and in the United States, you can actually have a longer term mortgage, and you can have a prediction of how much you will have to pay for the next 20 or 30 years every month on your mortgage payments. So you have a plan and you can do the math moving forward. In Canada, at best, you can lock up your mortgage for 5 years, and probably the interest rate would not be very favorable, to the extreme where your rate may change next month if you are on a variable mortgage rate. And that makes that math and planning of your investment much more difficult in Canada for the reason of unpredictability of the rates. Like, for example, 1.5% mortgage rates that were here in Canada in 2021. Right now we're in 2024, and the rates can be easily up to 7%. And this is 5 times difference that definitely throws all your math and planning out the window for specifically for real estate, relying on the mortgage. Real estate still does tend to appreciate over time, and it can be part of your consideration in real estate investment. However, I would not recommend to do the real estate investment purely for the appreciation over time, because if you buy an apartment today, you have to be able to cover your month-to-month expenses with the revenue from that property. You don't know if it appreciates over time, by how much, and when exactly. So it is possible that the prices can, again, temporarily even go down, depending if there's like lots of high-rises are going up and you have one of the high-rise apartments. Because there is more supply and there's still probably the same demand, the prices may go down temporarily. Over time it would appreciate, again, usually. But are you able to put out of your pocket money into monthly expenses for indefinite amount of time if this property not bringing you any additional any income, or at least not paying for itself? And it's typically not a good idea, especially for the beginner investors, to be relying on putting money into a property. So at the very least, if you're not getting return and cash flow out of the investment, at least it should not be costing you money. So don't rely on appreciation of the property only, unless you have like really huge reserves and doing more advanced real estate investments. So treat the appreciation as a bonus when you sell the property, but don't do it purely for the purpose. It should be able to at least pay for itself, if not generate a cash flow for you every month. The next reason why I am not as involved in real estate investment anymore, and something that is not being talked much by real estate investors, is that actually real estate investment and real estate returns are not passive income. It may seem like that because you just collect the rent, you pay your mortgage, you pay your strata fees, and you're done with it. But really, it does take your involvement. You are not paid by the hour like at your job, but it does take your involvement. Sometimes also takes sleepless nights handling various issues. It can be as simple as a broken appliance or a plugged toilet, all the way to bad tenants that may end up not paying the rent or damaging the property. And you have to deal with it. So for that reason, you can say, okay, it's not a 9-to-5 job, I still need to be dealing with it, so it's not a fully passive investment. Or you can hire a real estate management company, but they would usually charge you in the neighborhood of 10% of your rent, meaning that's 10% off your investment that you're losing right away, at which point your return is probably close to zero, if not negative, because they are taking it from the rent without deducting all the other expenses that you have to deal with. So my experience was that I had to deal with my properties myself, otherwise I couldn't make the numbers work hiring a real estate company. And if you are not living close to your properties, which again was the case for me when I moved from Europe to Canada, I couldn't handle them myself anymore. And that's the reason why I didn't continue investments in Europe, and I couldn't really make the numbers work with the Vancouver prices of purchase of real estate versus rent. Again, it's perfectly possible to manage your real estate yourself. You select your tenants, you communicate with them, you provide them service, the rent, you collect the payment. But for that reason, I would recommend to not invest in any real estate properties that are further than, for example, an hour away from your home or from your work, from your regular location, because you don't want to be doing multiple trips if you have to deal with something and you need to drive a few hours each way or even fly to your property. So that's where it becomes more difficult. And that brings me to my last point here. You will occasionally, statistically, if you have lots of real estate properties, you will end up occasionally with less than perfect tenants. And it can be anything from late rent payment to non-payment to damages. And what will make a big difference are the regulations in the area where you own the real estate. You cannot change, you cannot move your real estate somewhere else, so do your research on the requirements and regulations and the laws that will protect you as a landlord. So for example, in this province, in British Columbia, in Canada, the regulations are provincial and they are very much tenant protective. So even if your tenant is not paying you rent right away, you may still have some time before you can actually have this tenant evicted. As opposed to, for example, Quebec in Canada, it's just another province in the same country, but the regulations and laws are very much landlord protective, and landlords have more incentives and protection for their business. In Canada, you could move into an apartment or any property with only half a month's rent as a damage deposit. In Germany, nobody would let you in with less than 3 months of rent as a damage deposit. So the landlords would be more protected in case of any damages or late or unpaid rent for their properties. So those things, they seem like they're not very important, and you hope that you will have perfect tenants, and I wish that to all of you. But the reality is that those regulations will kick in sooner or later. And also any routine maintenance, appliances, repairs will also come out of your cash flow. Even if you have good tenants, there is wear and tear on your property, and does all of that affect your bottom line. So you need to factor in that even as your good tenant moves out and you're looking for the next one, your property may end up being vacant for a month. Are you able to meet that mortgage payment? You need some repairs. You need to deal with some issues with the property or otherwise. Your strata may have a special levy on the roof. Yes, it does improve the value of the building, but it's still the cash that you have to come up at that very moment. So I still believe that real estate investment can be a great investment option, and it did work great for me in the past, and it could potentially work great in the future. Make sure you do run the numbers, do your math, check the regulations, and as long as all the boxes are checked and all the puzzle pieces are coming together, that can be a great thing. It can let you soar, and it can really elevate your financial well-being, but it can also bring you down if you didn't do your homework. So I hope this video was helpful. One quick last comment. Many people consider their home, their primary residence, as an investment, and I'm sorry, it's not true. Your home is great. It is important psychologically for many people to own their place, to be independent from the landlord, and I can totally relate to it. But unfortunately, from the financial perspective, from the investment perspective, your primary residence is not an investment, that's a cost. It does not bring you money every month, it's costing you money. And it could be saving you some money compared to renting, and you may be able to rent out part of your home, and in which case that part can be an investment, so to speak. But in the big picture, your primary residence is not your investment. So if it's your biggest investment, you probably should reconsider your financial plan. On the bonus side, in Canada, and could be in some other countries as well, double check your regulations. Any capital gains you realize on your primary residence are completely tax-free. So going back to my earlier example, if I was to buy that $250,000 apartment and I lived there myself, and 5 years later I sold that apartment for $350,000, the realized profit would have been $100,000, and I would not have needed to pay a dime of taxes on that amount, because in Canada the capital gains of the primary residence of the owner are exempt from taxes. Now, you probably cannot just take out $100,000 and buy the apartment again, unless you have a time machine that takes you back 10 years. We will have a separate video what you can actually use it for, and how you can upgrade certain things and make it part of your, if not investment strategy, but maybe personal wealth growth. So the link will be in the description. But keep in mind that knowing the regulations that are allowed in your area, in your country, can make a big difference in your financial planning. And it's really important to educate yourself and use that to your advantage to legally increase your financial well-being and whatever you want to use it for. So if you found value in this video, please like, subscribe, and share. And I would like to hear your comments. Please post below. Share your experience of real estate investment journey, or your thoughts about starting real estate investments. If you have any questions, feel free to post them as well, and I promise to respond. Wishing you all the best and good luck.